first Jocko Milk Cafe.
Yes, I believe so.
That's what Brian said anyway. He said no one said anything.
I really do believe so.
Yes.
Yeah, this is awesome.
There you go. That's good. Go, guys. Stop it. Let's go up. Go.
Going to have a steak dinner tonight. I'm going to make you eat a steak dinner. Now, you like steak, but if I'm saying you're going to have a steak dinner, naturally on the inside, you're like, actually, I want chicken. Because now I'm telling you what you're going to do, you're going to push back a little bit.
The world is telling us as men to be common, to fall in line, to fall short of any visions or plans God has for us. But what about being uncommon? This is a movement of men seeking to build an eternal legacy. A journey of men on mission to rise above the common to experience sustainable life change. This is Uncommon Disciple. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Uncommon Disciple podcast with Michael Bowen, Jared Gibson, and our very, very, very special guest, JP Dinnell, my good friend.
How are you guys doing?
Good. Welcome,
Good.
JP, to Colorado.
Oh man, it's always good to be back in Colorado. That fresh mountain air is unlike anything else. So thank you for having me here.
Yeah. We hope to have good weather tomorrow, so you'll be able to see the mountains.
Either way, I'm in Colorado, so I'm good to go.
Yeah. So when was the first time you were in Colorado? When's the last time you were here?
First time I was a kid. I have family in this area that was in the Denver, Aurora area. So growing up, we tried to come out here and see my family. Was on my mom's side, her sister and all my cousins. And I still have a cousin that, so my aunt and a few of my cousins live here, and my cousin, Carson, who I was probably the closest with growing up as, on that side of the family, he lives actually here in the Castle Rock area. And he's a fighter pilot in the Air Force. And the last time I was here was right before the muster that we had in Vegas. I flew in here on Sunday, did a workshop on Monday, and then I flew to Vegas on Monday.
That's when you sent me the picture when you were up at Red Rocks.
Yeah, I just
right?
went to Red Rocks. Yeah. I had a bunch of work to do, but I was like, wait, I can actually do stuff from not inside the hotel room. So I drove to Red Rocks and just sat there and worked and just. It was awesome. It was absolutely beautiful.
Nice.
So.
Yeah, that place is awesome. So I think I should fill everyone in on the backstory on how we met. And I think it's going to be crucial to tell everyone that, how I was introduced to the extreme ownership principles, because that's how we met.
Yeah.
And so I when I first met you, I told you that outside of the Bible, the extreme ownership book probably was one of the books that has impacted me the most in my life. So now it was probably the beginning of 2016, not 15, since the book didn't come out until October.
Yeah.
But I saw the Extreme Ownership book on the shelf of a buddy of mine. His name was Wes. We were living in St. Augustine, Florida at the time. And he was studying for his MBA, and the Extreme Ownership was a required read.
That's a smart MBA program.
Yeah, well, it was University of Florida, and he was not wanting to read the book because I guess he was reading so many books. And so he says, hey, you want to read it and take cliff notes and give it to me? And so it was the strangest story, right? Because I was sitting in his office in a bank. He was working for, he was my banker at the time in St. Augustine. And he hands me the book, And I knew right away when I saw the cover, I said, man, this book is going to be right up my alley. And I read it, and I ended up reading it 3 times and highlighting it and putting little notes in there. And it was that was the beginning of my extreme ownership launch, if you will, into the principles of extreme ownership. But then I ended up going to the muster. Song, my wife, is from Northern California. I think I told you that. Yeah. So you guys were doing a muster up in San Francisco. Yeah. And that was the first time that I met you. And then I ended up bringing Song back to Chicago, and I think that's where we really started the bond.
Yes. Yeah.
JP was about to give his talk, and I didn't know this at the time, but he shared with me afterwards that Jocko had changed up his talk at the muster. And
Last minute.
Yeah, and I had said before he talked, before he had gone up to talk, I said, hey, bro, I just want you to know that God has put you on my heart, and I've been praying for you. And you just looked at me like stunned for a minute, and then you went up and gave your talk, which was literally your testimony at the time. And Song and I think everyone in the audience was weeping, if I remember correctly. But we were just blown away because I didn't know your backstory. Yeah. And so I think that was the first time that I had heard all the struggles that you had when you left the military. Mm-hmm. So I want you to speak to that tonight. And as the Uncommon Disciple, we're looking to just help men along in their journey to be men, leaving a long lasting legacy. And so, I think discipline would be a good subject tonight for us to talk about, because that's typically what you talk about. And we both know that discipline is an important principle to apply to our lives as men.
Yeah, absolutely. And, yes, it is something I talk about often, because being an instructor at Echelon Front, working for Jocko and Leif, discipline is the root of everything that we do as a company and an organization. Yeah. And Jocko's big mantra, I guess you could say, is discipline equals freedom. Mm-hmm. But a lot of people are like, oh, that's awesome, I've never heard of it. And that's actually a biblical thing. Sure. Discipline is a very important thing. And, Jocko even says, and Leif says a lot, like, the things that we talk about and that we teach at Echelon Front, we didn't create, we didn't invent it. These have been around since the beginning of time. And you can definitely find these principles in the Bible as well. There's correlations all over the Bible to the basic principles that we teach at Echelon Front, the laws of combat, the mindsets for victory. And, as we're talking about discipline, one of the quotes that has drastically, and I mean drastically, impacted my life, Jocko told me, it was January of 2020. We were in Half Moon Bay working with a client. We're sitting outside the hotel. I mean, this client that we work with, they're one of my top clients. I love what they're doing. They're in the cancer world, so they're trying to eliminate cancer, and the treatments and all the tests that they have is absolutely phenomenal. And so to talk about a God thing, when I did my pre-event call with that client with Jocko, I didn't know too much about that client. It was on my calendar for a pre-event call, and then from there I'd learn about the client, And I was actually in the hospital with one of my very close buddies who was dying from brain cancer. And then I step out of the room to do my call, and I got super emotional when I was learning about this company and what they stood for and what they were doing. And I even told them, I'm like, I'm actually in the hospital with my buddy Luke Barker, who's dying of brain cancer right now. It's going to be an absolute honor to be able to work with you guys. And I did an event with them in November of 19, and then they were like, hey, can we do another event with you in December? I'm like, let me check. Yes, I'm available. Boom. So I did another one with them in December, and then that's when, and in January, Jocko and I did our big event with them. And so we're at the Ritz-Carlton, Half Moon Bay, beautiful place, and we were sitting outside talking, and I was just frustrated with where I was at in my life with, just where I was at physically and, spiritually, just like everything. And yes, I was doing well working for Jocko and Leif, but I wasn't complete. I wasn't where I needed to be as a man. And, I've known Jocko since 2005, a very close person to me, like a brother and a father figure combined, right? And someone who I've always looked up to, and we have a very open relationship, and we talk about everything together. And, I was just kind of talking through all this stuff with him, and he's just processing and listening like he does extremely well. Jocko's a great listener, which that's what makes him a great communicator. And he says, discipline is rooted in the truth that we tell ourselves.
I actually have a note from one of the musters that you had repeated that.
Oh, I've repeated it. I've stolen it. People are like, "Oh, I love that quote. Is that yours?" And I'm like, "It ain't mine. Jocko said it, but if you want it to be mine, you can put my name with that." It's something that Jocko told me. And I was just sitting there processing that. And I said, "Say it one more time." Because I wanted to write it down on my phone. He goes, "Discipline is rooted in the truth that we tell ourselves. Stop lying to yourself, JP." I was like, Because if you think about it, anywhere in your life that you're lacking discipline, it's because you've been lying to yourself. And, that was the main reason why Amanda and I, my wife, our marriage fell apart, is because we were lacking discipline in our marriage. I was lacking discipline as a husband, as a father, as the head of the household, and we weren't doing what we were supposed to be doing because I lacked the discipline to hold our family accountable, to hold those standards that you're supposed to. And anytime my health isn't where it needs to be, it's because I'm lacking discipline. And I'm lacking discipline because I tell myself, hey, you're really busy, you're traveling, hey, you're in 4 different cities this week in every different time zone, you're doing pre-event calls, you're doing dinner with the client, you're doing all, yeah, I'm doing all those things, but guess what? I could still carve out a little bit of time to do something in the morning, something in the evening. I could eat a little bit better. These are all things that I can do. I just choose not to because I make excuses. Therefore, I lack the discipline.
So let me ask you then. So what were some of the lies that you were speaking to yourself?
At what time in my
well,
life?
I guess in general, I think men
Yeah.
in general can relate to that we can relate to the lies that we tell ourselves.
The
it
big
could be
one, I'm too busy.
How awesome we are, or how busy we are, or making excuses for things that we think that we need to do. So what were some of the early lies that you were telling yourself that you think Jocko was caught you and just said, hey?
I would say
right
the
there.
biggest one, especially when I'm talking to a guy like Jocko with all the stuff that he's doing in his life, was I'm busy. Yeah, I was busy. But compared to who? Compared to Jocko? No. Compared to Leif? No.
Yeah.
I wasn't that busy. I was busy, but I wasn't too busy I couldn't do those things. And so one of the things I've been trying to teach when I talk about the principles of Echelon Front with different companies, we give our extreme ownership brief. When we talk about time, prioritize and execute. And a lot of people say, I don't have time, right? I don't have time to do jujitsu. I don't have time to meal prep. I don't have time to go for a walk. I don't have time to read the Bible. I don't have time to take my wife out on a date. I don't have time to go to my kids' recital. I don't have time, whatever. Fill in the blank for anything in your life. And I say all these things, and people are nodding their head. They're like, yeah, because they think I'm like going to give them an easy out.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, actually, you're all lying to yourselves. I'm lying to myself when I say that. In reality, it's just not a priority.
Yeah.
So instead of saying, I don't have the time, say it's not a priority to train my team. That one hurts. It's not a priority to take my wife out on a date. It's not a priority to go to my son's wrestling tournament. It's not a priority to meal prep. It's not a priority to read the Bible. It's not a priority to pray. It's not a priority to go to church. And so I was majorly lacking discipline in my time management. And I was allowing my busy schedule to be like a badge of honor. And in reality, being busy is not a badge of honor. That actually means that I'm not able to properly prioritize my time management and understand like, hey, there's actually things you have to say no to.
We're using time as an excuse to stiff arm other responsibilities that you may have had.
Which is crazy.
Yeah, I've done that. It was interesting. You met Mr. Dave when we came down to Dallas to visit you, and he had sung, and he was our marriage mentors a few years ago, and he had us do this this little test, and it was write out your whole day in 15-minute increments. And it came down to we were having some struggles in our marriage, right? And I thought we were doing awesome, right? That's what guys think. We're awesome, and
crushing it.
Wife is just like left behind in the dust. And
we think we're doing awesome because our wife's having sex with us.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
Our marriage is great because I'm having sex.
Yes.
It's like, well, okay, we'll dive deeper into that one later.
Exactly. That's true.
It's factual. I mean, you
talk because our love languages are different, right?
So yes, 100%.
So we think being physical is the time that we spend, right?
Yeah.
So if that was the case, I won't get deeper in that. Yeah. So anyway, we did this time inventory study. Every 15 minutes throughout a 24-hour day, we had to document, each of us, her and me, Because I was under the assumption that the lie that I was telling myself, we spend a lot of time together. And so after a week, and I'm not kidding you, in a full week, we literally spent quality time. It was like 1 hour. And when we came back to the table with that data, I was sick to my stomach, right? Because again, the lie I was telling myself is, hey, I spend time with her all the time. But we're in the same room together, or we have, we make love together. But it's like, that's not time, the time that she was wanting. And so her, I wasn't fulfilling her need by just being in the same room with her. So that's, that was an example of the lie that I told myself. And when I saw the data point, and I know that you're a big note taker, bro, because I see you everywhere we go, you're always taking notes. But that's why I take notes. I carry around a notebook, and I know that Jocko sets that example. I see him pulling one out of his pocket. When we were at the Origin Camp, I saw you with every black belt that was teaching. You're making little notes. I actually took a picture of you doing it and said, man, if this guy's taking notes like this is just how detail-oriented you are. And I know that you'll make fun of your memory and say, it's because I have a bad memory. But I know that you care about those things and you take notes. But I think that if we as guys did that often with a lot of things in our life, that we would see how much we lie to each other, lie to ourselves with the data points that we have.
That's unique. I was talking with one of my buddies, and his business wasn't where he wanted it to be. And he was struggling with some stuff. And I actually told him, I was like, hey, block out your day in 15-minute increments. 1, to evaluate how much time you're actually wasting. And 2, to set that structure and be disciplined with committing to those 15-minute increments and see what it does with your business. And he's like, really? I'm like, yeah, just try it. And he did it. I don't know how long he did it. And I'm not saying that this contributed to his business success, but he's much more successful with his business now, where he needs to be. And I don't know if that came into it. I do believe that was part of it. If anything, it just brought awareness to him.
For sure.
Of the time that he was like losing. Because if you're really trying to sprint with your business and make things happen, you need to find those gaps that you're losing, right? And there's a season. And I know I was just talking about like being busy and having busy as being a badge of honor, but there is a time in your life that being busy is a good thing, because if you're being busy and productive, busy and productive are two different things.
For sure.
And if you're being productive with your time and just out there hustling and working hard, well, one, that's what God wants us to do, right? He wants us to work hard. But there are times that you have to do it. I mean, like you, building up this gym, your business, all these things that you're launching, you're going to be very busy. You just need to make sure that you're being productive with that time. And understanding that the time that it's going to take away from your wife and kids, you've got to make it up tenfold on the back end.
Sure.
And that's something that we told our kids when I started working for Jocko and Leif 5 years ago. Amanda and I did a call with Jocko, and he's like, hey, you're going to be real busy. You're going to miss a lot of stuff if you want. If you want to be a part of building this out with Leif and I and be like a founding, leader of this company and being able to build it out other than just what we've been doing, he goes, you're going to be really busy for about 5 years. If we do this right, in about 5 years, you'll have a team that you can start building them up. And then about 2 years later, you can pick and choose what you want to do. And it's amazing, because right now we're at 5 years, and guess what? I have a team in place. Yeah. And my team is taking more and more off my plate every single day, which is great because we're getting busier and busier and busier with client demands. Yeah. So the more they take off my plate, it hasn't actually freed up anything because the demand has grown, which is a blessing for business. But I've been able to put these guys in positions to better their lives. And now they're taking more and more, like Cody Gandy, who works for me.
Yeah, he's a good dude.
Oh, he is an amazing person. Yeah. He's my right-hand man, helping build out the field training exercise program that we have at Echelon Front. And he's also the coordinator for all our first responder programs. Absolute stud. And he's been taking so much off my plate. And it's really cool to see like him grow as a man, as a leader. And it just, the opportunities are out there. And like I was telling you like earlier, like, this next year I'm going to be busy still, but 2023, that's when I get to throttle back a little bit.
For sure.
And it's going to be awesome. Like, I'm really looking forward to that. Like, hey, I might actually be able to train jiu-jitsu more than 2 to 3 times a month. Like that would be, I would like that, you know,
Yeah.
would be able to just come out and like we were talking about just coming out to visit and spend time with you guys here, like in Denver, you know, not Denver, but Castle Rock area. I'm just kidding. I love Denver.
Well, you're going to be out here in June, I think.
I know we're going to be,
that.
well, we're going to be here for the muster, which is amazing. But for me, just to be able to come out and spend like a week with you and your family and us go do stuff, I don't have that ability right now.
Yeah.
I legitimately do not have that freedom in my schedule. But because we're being so disciplined with building the business, that freedom will come on the backside. 100%. If you're disciplined with anything in your life, freedom comes from that.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting. Discipline is extremely hard, right? Especially if you're undisciplined. Mm-hmm. And there's a Bible verse that speaks to it that I really like. It's Hebrews chapter 12, verse 11. It says, "No discipline is enjoyable while it is happening. It's painful. But afterward, there will be a peaceful harvest of right living for those who are trained in this way." And then verse 12 says, "So take a new grip with your tired hands and strengthen your weak knees. Mark out a straight path for your feet so that those who are weak and lame will not fall but become strong."
That's outstanding.
And I think it's a powerful verse because I agree with you that a lot of the things that are written in any book, you know, even the book that I just wrote, The Brave, you know, there's nothing new under the sun necessarily, just presented
in a different manner
as it related to me, right? So I love, and we have the Discipline Equal Freedom flag that was covered by the barrier over there, but we were supposed to hang up, you know, but it's not in camera shot, but anyway, so no one can see it. Nope. But I like to say that godly discipline equals spiritual freedom. Mm-hmm. You know, when we're disciplined in the things of God, we're not looking over our backs as men. We're not worried about our wife picking up our cell phone and finding something that she's not supposed to find. Exactly. Or our kids walking in on us doing something that we're not supposed to be doing. And I think, you know, again, but being disciplined, it's not easy work. Mm-hmm. You know, when you set out, I know that, you know, I heard how you started with Echelon Front. Man, I was just blown away when Jocko and Leaf were saying for the first 4 years they didn't make any money at Echelon Front.
Yeah.
They were just going out doing free talks. And literally, it surprises me. But people don't see that, you know, that life. They don't see the fact that when you got out of the military, man, you were delivering pizzas and doing everything that you can, construction, odd jobs, just to keep ends met.
Yeah.
You know, for your family, because you love providing for your family, which I think is a great thing for men to do. You have to be a provider for your family. Mm-hmm. But no one sees the workup. They see JP, you know, he's, you know, third in the stage, you know, behind Jocko and Leif, you know, speaking on leadership principle to thousands and thousands of people. Yeah. But they think, oh, maybe Jocko just gave him that, but he didn't.
No. People seem to think that there's instant success when there's somebody like, especially like, you know, younger guys I talk to, you know, I just want to make $40 an hour. I just want to make $50 an hour, you know, like they're working at, you know, some like lower level job or whatever. But like, they don't know, they always go, I don't know how to get there. And then, you always ask them, well, what are you doing to get there? But they just want it to just happen.
Yeah, they're not willing to do anything extra to work on it, you know. And, and that's, I will tell you, that's something I get very passionate about when people see where Jocko and Leif are, even new instructors, right? The new instructors that come on board with us.
The guys that just walk in.
Oh, yeah. And, you know, and they're great guys. And don't get me wrong, our new instructors are phenomenal. We filter through and we're very selective. But the opportunities that these guys get is insane. Insane. Absolutely insane because of the growth of Jocko's podcast, the growth of Echelon Front, the musters, the books, all the work that Jocko and Leif have put in, all the work that Jocko's put in for all these other books. So people come to Echelon Front. It's just a different game now. Nobody has to do anything free on our team. Nobody. At the beginning, I did a handful of free things. And I was fine with it. And Jamie's like, Jamie Cochran, who's our, you know, she was our director of operations, now our chief operations officer, which that's another amazing story, right? She started off part-time helping book travel for Jocko and Leif, and now she runs the company.
You know, when
she's a phenomenal instructor.
When we were in Chicago, I remember there hadn't been any females speaking at the muster. And I think it was really because Song was with me at the Chicago muster. And there was a lot of other women there, and I think I told you this. I said, man, it would be awesome if you had, and I was thinking like a female military officer to come up. But Jamie is like, when you go to the muster, you see her just scrambling around and doing everything. I mean, everything. Picking up garbage, helping people carry stuff.
She's phenomenal.
And she's just, it's like the glue.
She's the glue of Echelon Front,
Yeah.
and she lives the principles. She applies the principles. She believes in the principles. There's nothing fake about her when it comes to what we do at Echelon Front. Nothing. And because of that, she's been able to grow within the company where she's now our chief operations officer. Rightfully so. She should be there. But anyways, 5 years ago, she'd be like, hey, JP, hey, I have this client, and they don't have a budget. They can cover travel. I'm like, okay, cool. Let's book it. And I did a lot of those. Actually, my first gig was here in Denver, Colorado. It was in December of 2016. I was speaking at a safety stand down event for a company out here. And it was, they didn't have a very big budget. Super small budget. And it was like, cool. I can't wait. I can't wait to go do that. And that's the thing is people, they don't understand what Jocko and Leif did for 4 years.
Yep.
Like 4 years where most people would have been like, hey, maybe we should rethink.
Well, let me ask you this,
things.
because we're talking about Jocko and Leif, but what were some of the early sacrifices that you had to make? Because I know that you had to make some sacrifices, and I think that there's probably some guys listening that will be listening to this podcast that are thinking about going off to start something new. And we know that when you step out to do something new, it's scary. And I don't care who you are, right? It's like people that say that they don't get nervous doing a jiu-jitsu tournament or, jumping at whatever. It's scary doing something new because we're creatures of habit, right? Mm-hmm. We like things easy. We like things that are routine. And when something changes in our world, it becomes a little uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So you had to make some early sacrifices. And I know some of the backstory, but for guys that are listening right now and they might be thinking of going to launch a new company or, stepping into a new relationship, getting married, going on a mission trip or being a missionary somewhere, speak to some of the early sacrifices that you had to experience, but also speak to what motivated you.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So you talk about we like things easy. Yeah. And that's a fact. Animals are the same way. One of the things I remember learning in the SEAL teams when we were doing land navigation is they told us like, hey, if you're, when you're, land navigation, if you're trained navigating, if you're having a hard time with the train, find an animal track and follow it because they pick the easiest routes. And that's always stuck with me. Animals pick the easiest route. So if you follow their tracks, whether it's going up a mountain, down a mountain, around a mountain, you find some animal tracks, follow it. 99 out of 100 times, it's going to be the easiest route based off of the train because that's what an animal is going to do. They're not trying to make it hard. They want the easy route. Well, humans we're very similar to that. We want the easy route. We want comfort, and that comfort that's a bad drug, because it's an addicting drug that's, going to take everything from your life. That's when that complacency creeps in, and complacency kills. And so in order for you to fight that complacency, you have to go to war with complacency. And I know you've heard me talk about that.
Yeah,
and
I'm looking at my notes here because that's something that you repeat consistently, and it almost seems like it's personal for you.
It is.
Yeah.
Because everything in my life fell apart because I allowed complacency to creep in. And I've seen complacency get people killed in combat, in training. I've seen businesses fall apart because of complacency. Our marriage fell apart because of complacency. I've just seen it absolutely destroy people's lives. So it's one of those things that you actually have to declare war against complacency every single day because that's a known enemy that's going to come against you. That's the devil, right? Satan's going to creep in. What does he want to do? He wants to destroy, and he wants to kill, and that he does it through complacency and us being lazy. And so when I had the opportunity to start, or even before working for Jocko and Leif, I was comfortable. I was working at a financial company. I was making decent money. I'm out of the military making good money, and I'm like, okay, I'm comfortable. And that allowed our marriage to fall apart. And there's a lot of other stuff there. We were able to get our marriage back because we had a second opportunity. We had we went to church, And we applied the principles of extreme ownership. I had read Extreme Ownership, and it was very liberating because I was like, I truly believed all those things were my fault. I wasn't casting blame. Nothing, you know. It wasn't partial ownership. It was complete ownership that I believed in. I was able to apply those principles and get my marriage back. And once I got my marriage back, I think subconsciously, I was really nervous and scared that I was going to let that complacency creep back in if I kept doing the same thing. And I didn't have fulfillment at that job. I was making money to provide for my family, but there was zero fulfillment. So as an extra on Transformers 5, it was really cool because it's a thing that I can check off the list that not a lot of people have done.
Yeah.
I don't care about that. What I care about is I was actually able to learn a lot, and I learned a lot from it. It was a great opportunity. Came back, had an opportunity to actually contract overseas, and it was a really good paying opportunity at the time. It was going to be $1,000 a day for 70 days. We had almost no money in our account. And it was at that time, and over this whole time, I'm consistently reaching out to Jocko and Leif and just, saying, hey, what can I do to help? I'm sorry, that's not accurate. I was reaching out to Jocko. I wasn't in contact with Leif again yet. And that's something I will share at another time, is I had made up in my mind because of guilt that I had from just stuff that had happened in the SEAL teams overseas, and with Chris Kyle being murdered and just all this stuff, I pushed all these people away. I had created this lie in my mind that Leif didn't like me. How crazy is that, bro?
Yeah.
So anyways, I was reaching out to Jocko all the time. Actually, I've never even told anybody that except for Jocko. So when Leif listens to this, we'll talk about it later, boss.
That's a first on the Uncommon Disciple podcast.
Yes. And so I was talking with Jocko, just reaching out to him. Hey, if there's anything I can do to help, let me know. You're like constantly doing that. Turns out he was like, man, I was in your area. I'm sorry. I didn't even think to reach out to you. And I remember he's like, I'm so busy. I don't even know where I'm going. And I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, come on. How do you not know that? Yeah. Well, now I get it. Like, if it wasn't for me being OCD about knowing my calendar and checking travel and everything else like that, the fact that I'm here, how much of a horrible person am I? I didn't even tell my cousin that I'm coming in town until today. I'm getting on the plane. I'm like, oh my gosh. Yeah. And so I text Carson and I'm like, hey, and then we were texting when I landed here. He's like, bro, I can't make the event. I'm deploying in 3 weeks. And I'm like, yes, go do your training. That's way more important, obviously. And I was like, I'm sorry, I'm such a horrible person. Yeah. But so I get it now.
Practicing as a fighter pilot's pretty important.
Yeah, I think that's slightly important before you go overseas, Yeah. The guy's a stud. So anyway, so Jocko was apologizing. So he reaches out to me at the exact same time that I'm in the process of getting this offer to go overseas. 70 days, $1,000 a day in a tax-free area. And I was just like, this is a game changer for our family right now. I mean, we have zero money in savings. A check that some guy had wrote me for some work that I did bounced and put our account in the negative. So now we're literally nothing, negative, over $2,000. All this stuff was going on. And then Jocko says, hey, I think we're kind of getting to the point where we might need to bring on another instructor. Now, I was consistently reaching out to him. Anything I can do to help. What do you need me to do? He goes, read the book, listen to the podcast. I'm like, I'm listening to the podcast. I read the book multiple times. I was like, if there's anything, help with sales, like just to shadow you, to learn, I'll pay for my own travel. Even though I was like, I don't know how I'd afford to get there. You know, I'd figure out something, And
yeah, you shared a story one time, I think, when you flew into San Diego.
Oh yeah, this is the story. Yeah, I'm going to San Diego. So he's telling me like, come, hey, we have this event. It's called the Muster. It's a 2-day leadership event that we're doing. You come check it out. See Leif, see Jamie, and we're kind of going through some. So I talked to him about it, and then I kind of mentioned the whole Leif thing. He goes, bro, like, what?
He's not mad at you.
No, you're good. Leif loves you. I've known Leif since SEAL qualification training, the advanced training afterwards before you check into a SEAL team. That's when I met him and Seth. And so it was just crazy. Again, I had formulated this lie in my mind to make me feel better about the fact that I'd pushed away almost everybody from the SEAL teams when I got out. And that was my way of dealing with the guilt from Mikey, dying, Chris being murdered, and, losing all my roommates, and everything else like that. That's how I was dealing with it. Not good, not healthy. Definitely not the way I should have done it. So he tells me about the event. And I'm like, okay. I was like, what's the dates? And he tells me the dates. I'm like, I am teaching shooting during that time, and then I'm supposed to head overseas right afterwards.
Okay, so this is one of those critical junctions, right?
Yep.
Where your desire, right, your heart's desire was to go and work with Leif and Jocko.
Yeah, but my heart's desire was also to provide
for
my family.
So you had a paying opportunity and a not paying, a no pay opportunity.
Just come see what we're doing.
Just come and check us out,
and we could talk afterwards.
Yeah.
And so I tell him, I'm like, hey.
Did you pray?
Not at this moment,
Okay.
but yes, I did. Okay, I did. But at this moment, I kind of tell him the situation. I'm like, hey, I'm teaching shooting at my buddy's thing. My buddy Steve Arian, who has Gray Fox Industries, great shooting instructor, has awesome stuff. And anytime he could throw me a bone, he's like, hey man, I have an extra spot as an assistant instructor. And I'm like, yep, there, boom. He'd get me out there because he knew I needed the money, and also we're buddies, and I think I'm a decent shooting instructor. And so, we worked well together. And I told Jocko about that, and I told him I'm supposed to be heading overseas. He's like, hey, I'm never going to ask you to do something that's going to take away from your family, income-wise. And this is what I love. Jocko's always told me the truth. That's his thing. He's always told everybody the truth. He's a man of integrity, and he knows that if you don't tell people the truth, they create their own versions of the truth.
For sure.
And that's a dangerous thing that people do.
Yeah.
Think about that. Fathers, husbands, they hide the truth from their family thinking they're protecting them, and that's not the right thing.
For sure.
Leaders and companies do that all across the world. So he tells me the truth, and he says, hey, I don't know what this is going to do. He goes, I have no idea, and I don't know when the next opportunity is going to be for you to come out. He goes, if you go do the thing, cool. Maybe, and this was what like killed me. He goes, maybe we can link up again in the future. And I like God and the Holy Spirit just straight up was just like on me at that moment. So I call Amanda and I tell her the deal, and she goes, Jocko and Leif will never screw you over. Now I've been screwed over by another team guy doing some shady business stuff, and I've been screwed over by another person, and I had made some emotional decisions. I thought a handshake meant something still. And apparently that's not the case in a lot of men these days.
For sure.
And Amanda knew that, hey, and that's still the deal with Jocko and Leif. I have no contract. I have nothing. Nothing is written, nothing. Everyone else that we've hired since, they all have, I don't have nothing. Guess what? I don't need anything. Like they brought it up one time at a training, and I took this like piece of paper and I made up a contract saying I, JP Dinnell, like all this stuff. Yeah. I'm like, hey, here's our binding contract agreement for me being an instructor, whatever that means.
Yeah.
Like, hey, if I'm ever at the point where I'm not doing what I'm supposed to do, I expect you guys to get rid of me.
Yeah.
And you know what? That'll never happen because I'm not ever going to let you guys down. And so that was a conversation Amanda and I had. She goes, hey, those guys will never lead you astray. They're always going to take care of you, and they're always going to tell you the truth.
Yeah.
And that's what I needed. I don't care if things aren't going well. Just tell me the truth. Hey, you can't pay me? Tell me the truth. I'm good with that. I'll figure it out, And then so I called another guy, my buddy Michael, who was very successful in business. He was actually trying to find a way for me to come start working with the companies he consulted for to teach leadership. Like before, because he's like, there's a big leadership void in these companies.
For sure.
So we were trying to figure out something like that, and it was going to be cool pay. It was going to be really good pay. And I was just like, And I called and told him, and he's like, dude, you have to get to that opportunity. And I think I felt like he's like, hey, if you need help getting to San Diego, let me know. And then so I call back Jocko, and I'm like, hey, I'm good to go. I'll be there. He's like, cool. Let me know when you have your travel booked. And he's like, I'll get you in contact with Jamie. And I'm like, all right, cool. I didn't have the money to fly out there.
Yeah.
I had zero money for a plane ticket. So I called my buddy Steve, and I said, hey, here's the deal. I have this opportunity, and he knew who Jocko and Leif were. He'd read Extreme Ownership. And he's like, bro, absolutely. He's like, I can get another instructor to cover down on the days that you're going to miss. He goes, I'm going to have to pay his travel pay. And I'm like, don't pay my travel pay. Use it for him. He goes, cool, thanks, bud. Because, he has a tight budget as well. That he's running a business. And I'm like, cool, thank you. And
so this was that first sacrifice, saying no to the paying
Yes.
opportunity.
Yes, again.
For a maybe.
Yes, for a maybe. And then getting my way out. And so I was looking at my accounts for points that I had because when I was doing sales, I traveled a lot. I was traveling. So I had just enough points, like just barely enough points to get me a round trip ticket. And it was going to be from Dallas, not from Memphis, from Dallas. And I was like, cool, as soon as I get done with the shooting training in Texas, I can fly from DFW, from Love Field, out to San Diego, and boom. But I was like, I can't afford a hotel. I don't know where I'm going to stay. I have buddies there that I could stay with, but I can't afford a rental car. I'm not going to have money for Uber or anything else like that. Like, I don't know what I'm going to do. But I made a commitment to him, and I trusted God. Like, I prayed about it. Amanda prayed about it, and I just knew. I knew that if I made my way out there, that God would provide. I just knew that because he's done that so many times in my life. And so I booked the flight. I sent a screenshot to Jocko. I'm like, hey, travel's booked, showing up here, leaving here. He's like, cool, we'll do a podcast while we're out here. And then he connects me with Jamie, and he says, hey, Jamie, can you get JP a hotel room at the venue so that he can be there with us? You've got to be kidding me. Literally was just praying about this. And I was like, I don't know where I'm going to stay. And I knew I had some really close friends there that if anything, I could be like, hey, bro, like, can I borrow a vehicle? Can I crash on your couch?
Yeah.
Can I sleep in your kid's crib? I don't care. Like, whatever. I'll put a hammock in the backyard at San Diego. I think I'll be all right. And so that's when God provided, obviously, the points that I had.
Yep.
My buddy Steve being super flexible. He didn't have to.
So you took a step of faith.
Absolutely.
So here's a scripture. Faith is the confidence that what we hope for will actually happen. It gives us the assurance about things we cannot see.
That is spot on.
You had no idea where this opportunity was going to lead.
Zero clue.
Yeah.
So fast forward, I make my way to San Diego. They cover the hotel. The little ready room that they were getting put, all the little swag bags put together for the muster, everything. They had snacks in there and everything else like that. I was like, oh, what's this for? They're like, hey, for the bags. Yeah, for me, I'm like, that's dinner to lunch. And I was like, I could probably do a 72-hour fast, no problem if I needed to. And so we always joke about it at this time. Yeah. I'm a creature of habit.
You're stuffing the free breakfast into your bag.
Yeah, I still do that at the musters. And Jamie's like, you don't need to do that anymore. Hey, go order room service. Yeah. We'll cover it. And I'm like,
yeah, it's crazy.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I always said if I ever go homeless, that's like just go hit the hotels in the morning. For their breakfast, their free breakfast.
100%. Go buy a
but when you're struggling, when you have no money and you're trying to provide for your family, it's like any little thing helps. Let's take the shampoo from the hotel room.
Yeah,
Let's take the bars of soap.
Yeah, we need all
like
this.
I don't know, where the next is going to come from.
Yeah. And so I made my way to San Diego, was at the muster. They covered the hotel. All the meals were taken care of because I was there with Jocko and Leif. I remember the first night, they're like, hey, you hungry? We're going to order some room service. I'm like, sure.
I'm starving.
Yeah, I was starving, and I ordered a bunch, and I ordered extra so that I could take it back to my room for the next day. Because I didn't know, I'm just like, hey, I don't know how this is going to go being here at the muster. And
sure.
So anyways, did that. After the first day of the muster, I was like, I told Jocko and Leif, I'm like, hey, I'm all in. Whatever you guys need from me, I want to help.
Yeah.
I just want to help. And I think they saw that I was genuine with the fact that I said I want to help. I wasn't like, hey, I want to be a part of this and, ride your coattails. Like, that wasn't the case.
Yeah.
I wanted to help because I saw the impact that it was delivering. And I just felt like this is what God wanted me to do next. And even though I don't like speaking in front of people, I have a speech impediment. I grew up in speech therapy all throughout school. And I still was like, but what was crazy is in that environment, I actually visualized myself up on the stage with Jocko and Leif at the first muster. Yeah. I sat there watching them, listening to them, taking notes. I was, the first. I was in the.
Do you think that was row. God giving you some insight as to some things to come?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And I've always, and I think this is a God thing as well, that God allows us to visualize things and manifest things in the future, so that we can. So that when the opportunity comes, we're not surprised by it.
Yeah,
it's not. We don't.
I think
miss
those
that
are little
opportunity.
gifts that He gives us.
100%.
Because I love I love when he shows us the fruit, you know, of, you know, when we're discipling someone, you know, and you'll just see that, and I think I told you this, I get a lot of joy out of watching other people succeed.
Oh, I love it.
I love watching other people win. And if I can be a part of helping someone win, it's just awesome.
It's fulfilling.
Yeah.
And you know that's something that we're supposed to do as humans.
For sure.
Is help, serve, and protect and take care of people. And I remember sitting there at the muster. I mean, the amount of pages of notes I took was just incredible. But I visualized myself up on stage. I legitimately visualized myself up on stage speaking in front of the group. And when I did that, it didn't make me nervous. I wasn't scared. Now, every time before I speak, I get nervous because I'm representing Jocko and Leif. Every word I speak represents what they've built. And every word I speak is also representing God.
That's right.
And that's something that I always pray about, like, Lord, speak through me. Let somebody hear what they need to hear today. That way it can transform and, you know, and change their life.
Yeah.
Something similar to that. That's what I try to pray every time. And, you know, and as soon as it's time for me to go up on stage, I tell myself, activate. And that's something that Jocko and I talked about in the last podcast, because it was something that he would do to get me to go to that next level as an instructor in training when I was role playing. Now, I always did something kind of similar to myself to prepare myself for every time we step out on a mission, every time we do something in training. It was always me getting myself in the game. You know, I always go back to the old school movie Over the Top, you know, the arm wrestling movie, Sylvester Stallone. He talks about, hey, when I turn my hat around, it's like a switch.
Yep.
And I think we all need to understand what our switch is. And for me, when I'm getting ready to go up and speak, I know that I'm representing everything that Jocko and Leif has built, and I'm also representing my faith with God and what he's been able to provide to me. And if somebody can take just one thing from, whether it's an hour keynote or a 8-hour full day workshop, if they just take one thing and apply it and it changes their life, then everything that I'm doing is 100% worth it. Because if you can impact and change someone's life for the better, I don't know to me, it's a high standing reward that you can have as a human. It's like when you preach, you know, when you just were preaching a few weeks ago at your church, you know that somebody took something that you said and it has positively impacted their life.
Yeah. Well, the promise is God's word never returns void, and that's a biblical, you know, that's a biblical principle outlined in the Bible. You know, it's interesting, JP. It's I never get bored of hearing your story, right? Because it encourages me and helps me along in my journey. But you know, I think that one of the things that we had talked about on the way from the airport was, you know, one of the things that I had heard from Jocko when he was describing when Seth had called him. Seth said JP needed help, and I remember I think it was Jocko that said it. He says JP doesn't need help; he needs a mission. He needs a new mission, and I think that having a mission as a man is extremely important. Now, I hear it a lot again, and it's the reference point. The muster is always the reference point because that's where we spend a lot of time together, and we do a lot of texting back and forth with one another. And I'm telling you, I'm praying for you or whatever, right?
All the time. It's always, whenever I see your name pop up on a text, and you're like, you know, we're talking about whatever. Hey, I'm praying for you. It's always right when I need prayer.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because when I saw JP at an event a few years ago, it was at a jiu-jitsu camp. I think it was 2019. And I had said to him, and we were just chatting about faith, and I had my son Caleb there at the time. And I said, hey, bro, I know you have a lot of brothers around you that were in the teams with you, but if you need a brother that's going to be praying for you, you know, a spiritual brother in your life, I can be that guy for you.
Yeah, you said, I'll be your spiritual swim buddy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was like, dude, that's gangster. Yeah. I love it. We all need that.
Yeah.
You know, and that was an important thing in the SEAL teams is a swim buddy concept, meaning that you always are with somebody because you don't want to be by yourself. No matter what you're doing in the SEAL teams, we don't do solo missions. Like, you always have somebody with you. And that, I think, the lack of commitment and accountability that men have is what's causing a lot of problems.
Why do you think that is? Now, I'm familiar with the concept swim buddy. As you know, that I'm a buds dud, is what I would be called. I was injured in training back in '94. But I had a swim buddy, and then I went to rescue swimmer training, and I had a swim buddy there as well. And you could never leave to go anywhere without your swim buddy. If you had to go take a leak, you took your swim buddy with
Yeah.
you. If you were in the ocean or going on a run, you had your swim buddy with
Yeah,
you. And
no
if you
matter
didn't know
what.
where your swim buddy was, you paid the
were
penalty.
in a lot of trouble.
Right? But let me ask you this, because this is interesting. When I left the service in '98, I relied on the guys that I worked with, the teams that I worked within, right? But when I left the service, the interesting dynamic that occurred was that when I got into trouble, right, when I was struggling personally and spiritually, I didn't run to the guys that God had put in my life. And he put some solid guys in my life early on when I was getting discipled. But why do you think it is as guys that we won't reach out for help? Now, and I know I'm not calling you out or Jared out at this point because I do the same thing. I know that, man, when I get at it with my wife or, man, something deep comes down, I get news that, that just is devastating. The last thing I do is call someone and say, hey, bro, I need your prayer, or, hey, can we meet up for coffee? And it's interesting. I don't know what the block is.
Oh, I know exactly what the block
Go
is.
ahead.
It's our ego.
Ego. I knew you were going to say that.
Because
Yeah.
that's the truth.
Yeah.
You can't dispute that. It is factual. It is our ego. And, that's, one of the things that we teach at Echelon Front is the number one characteristic of a great leader is humility.
Sure.
The number one skill set is the ability to communicate. And communication is not just talking to somebody. It's the ability to listen. And in order for you to truly listen to somebody, that requires humility. So the reason why we don't reach out to people is because of our ego. It's because of our insecurities or jealousy.
Yeah.
And insecurities and jealousy are rooted from our egos. Now, I know someone's listening and goes, well, our ego is what drives us. Our egos are a good thing. You're right. Your ego is a good thing. It drives you. But it's when you can't control your ego, when you can't check your ego, when you can't show humility to say, hey, I need some help. I need some prayer. I need just somebody to talk to. I need you to bounce. I need to bounce some ideas off you. I need you to hold me accountable. We don't do that because of our ego. We don't want to show weakness. We don't want to show anything. And that's
I do it more now,
thing.
by the way.
Well,
like
that comes from wisdom.
But I'm going to tell you, it's difficult. It really is. And it's, hey, I don't want to burden this person, especially if it's late at night, like I don't want to make that phone call. But
well, I don't sleep much.
Yeah.
And so that's why everyone's like, hey, do you wake up early like Jocko and Leif? I'm like, no, because I'm up late. And if I can get some sleep, I'm going to get some sleep. And even like the times I wake up, it's still not a lot of sleep time because I'm up sometimes 1, 2, 3.
So it's only when you're on the clock do you post that you're waking up at 4:30 in the morning?
Yeah. I only post that the times I wake up. So if you look at my Instagram, the only times that you see early posts is because that's the only time I have to be up early. Otherwise, what, you want a screenshot of 8:30 and my wife bringing me coffee to my nightstand to help me wake up? Okay, that's super motivating. Said nobody.
I was, during COVID, I heard a story about.
That's actually true, brother. So you don't have to laugh too much.
When Gronk got picked up for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, there was a story that during COVID, the coach was making the guys tape their workouts and send them in. And Gronk would tape in 1 hour. He'd put on like 4 different shirts, or it was something ridiculous. I'm probably getting it all wrong, but he would, just send all these films in a 1 hour session that would cover his whole week, and then he would do nothing. But it's like, hey, I'm going to set my alarm at 4:30 every morning and just
take a picture and go back to sleep.
Hey, there's that one. There's an Instagram that's like Jocko memes or something.
It's
Not Jocko,
crazy.
the guy that's like sets his alarm for like 11:30 in the morning, and he's eating he's putting cookies into a
hashtag not Jocko.
Yes.
Yeah.
He's putting like cookies into a blender, and it's just crazy.
It's insane.
But Jared has you've got a story about complacency, Jared, in your marriage, and actually, all three of us. It's interesting that we're in the room together because we all had a moment in our marriage that it could have blown up. Where Song and I had that moment in our marriage where I didn't think we were going to make it. You had that moment in your marriage. JP had that moment in his marriage. Actually, they split up.
Oh, we were divorced.
And God brought them back together. So Song and I were separated for a time. When we were living in Florida, man, it was like for like 2 weeks. I was like, I don't know if we're going to make it. To engage in behaviors that we know that aren't good for us, right? The I'm busy was my stiff arm for people. You know, people are like, I don't want to approach him. You know, people that I was accountable to, I don't want to approach him because he's too busy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I've been trying to do is, you know, just say I haven't made it a priority. And for me, you know, that for our family getting back into church, you know, we weren't going to church for a while. You know, we moved to Texas and we tried out a couple different churches that we liked. They were great churches, but we just didn't have that connection, you know.
Sure.
And then the church that we're going to now, Milestone, is a phenomenal church, you know. And there's a great connection there, and it was cool because some of our close friends, Jeremiah and Ashley Chapman, they're both they're phenomenal studs, like athletic studs. They have a company that they provide sports training to athletes, high school athletes and junior high athletes and everything else like that. And Jeremiah and I have become really good friends over the last couple of years. And their daughter was in the same class as Cora and Nola, and that's when we first met. And
Yeah.
It was funny because he kind of was like, I remember the first day of school, like, I'm like looking at everybody, meeting them, and he's kind of like looking at me, but it was more of like, it was the look that I get now.
Not measuring you up.
No, not measuring me up, but kind of like, do I know that guy type of thing. And I get that more and more now because of just growing with, you know, just everything with Echelon Front. And
Get to say you're famous, KP.
no, I am not even close. No, let's not say that ever again. And
You're famous in God's eyes,
really
bro.
Uncomfortable.
Yeah, you're famous in God's eyes.
Hey, I'll take that.
Yeah.
And so we're walking in our neighborhood one day, and we see Jeremiah and Ashley, and we recognize, you know, the kids are like, oh, you know, and he's like, hey, man, are you JP Dinnell? And I'm like, yeah, man. He's like, man, I thought so. He's like, it's awesome that our kids are in the same class. He goes, man, I love Jocko's podcast. I apply a lot of the stuff that you guys teach to our company. I'm like, cool, it's your company. So we started talking. We become really good friends. They're just really good people, you know. So they started going to Milestone. And they reached out to us, and it was like during like the time where Aiden keeps going, it's like, hey, we really need to get back into church. So our son was the one that was like driving that back to us.
Isn't that interesting how kids do that, man?
Oh, it's incredible. And, you know, at the very beginning of Amanda's our relationship, I was the one that was driving us to go to church. And she was not wanting to go to church because she had a really bad interaction with the church, you know, from her past. The church that she grew up in completely turned their back on her during the time that she needed them the most.
You know what's interesting, bro? I say that there's 3 reasons why people won't go to church or engage in fellowship. It's either hypocrisy, hurt, or heresy. One of those 3 is why, you know, people will be reluctant they'll even deny Christ at the expense of a feeling that they had. Yeah. So it's interesting that you just speak to that they were hurt by the church.
Yeah, so Amanda was hurt by the church for a very long time. And then we got our divorce. What brought us back together was church.
Yes.
Because it was a Sunday morning. I called her. I had our daughters. It was my weekend with them. Even when we were divorced, we never used the kids against each other. It was, we called each other every day. We'd let each other talk to the kids, FaceTime, see each other outside of our normal time with the kids, you know, anytime.
And let's just add this. The church isn't the physical structure.
No.
It's the people.
Yes.
It's the koinonia. It's the fellowship that we engage with one another.
Yeah.
So it's not a church building, and I think a lot of people get that wrong. Well, I'm not going to church. Well, you don't want to engage in fellowship with other people because we're the church as believers.
Yes, absolutely. And so I call her, and she on speakerphone. I'm getting the girls ready, and she goes, "Hey, girls, do you want Daddy to pick me up for church?" I was so mad, bro.
I've heard this story, but
I was
it's
so
good.
mad because I was done. We were done. We had tried the back and forth thing multiple times, even while being divorced, and it was just so toxic that I was like, we can't do this for our kids. Like, it's not healthy. One of us is going to kill each other one of these days. It's not going to be good. Like, it was so toxic. And I was like, all right, you have 7 minutes to be outside. If you're not there, I'm going to keep driving. Like, I was just not in the mood. Come around the corner. Gosh, she's standing outside wearing a dress looking beautiful. I'm like, why do you have to look so good right now? Pull up, pick her up, gets in the car. She's like, hey, girl. She's like, hey. And I'm like, Not even looking at
I'm
her.
not looking at
I'm
you.
not going to look at how good you look right now. And so we go to
She did that on purpose,
Oh,
man.
100%. Yeah. And so, anyways, we go to church, and of course, the message is speaking directly to me. It's talking about letting go of anger and resentment in your heart. It's like,
Yeah.
got to be
God has a
kidding
way
me.
of doing that, right?
100%.
You probably went up to the pastor and were like, did you know I was coming to church?
Yeah,
You know?
no, it was, but it was one of those things. And, I tell this to people when we teach our field training exercise programs or just speak in front of people. I tell people, like, you're going to find the message that you're looking for. And that was what my heart was looking for. Yeah. That's what I needed. God, the Holy Spirit knew that that's what I needed, right? And so she writes down on a piece of paper, "I still love you," hands it to me. I look at it. I crinkle it up, hand it back to her. And then at this time, they announce, "Hey, we have these small groups for couples." And I was like, "You've got to be kidding me right now." And I know the power of small groups.
Was God knocking on your heart at that point?
He was kicking in the door. He wasn't knocking. It's sort of like breacher up, like we call in the SEAL teams. You have a locked door, you call a breacher, they blow open the door. Yeah.
The preacher was the breacher.
Oh, the preacher was a breacher, baby. He put a 6-foot breaching charge on the door and kaboom, blew it open.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay. No matter how mad I was at her, I was at least mindful enough to listen to God at this point in my life still. And so we go, and she's like, "Hey, I think we should do a small group." And I told her, I was like, "Okay, let's do it. If it doesn't work between us, we are 100% done, and we will focus on being really good friends for our daughters and for Aiden." Because I'm still trying to be a part of Aiden's life,
Yeah.
Aiden's my bonus boy. He's my stepson. He's mine,
I have one
So
of those.
even when we were divorced, I would still take him to school sometimes.
Yes.
I'd still do stuff. I love him like no other. And so I knew it was important for us to do it for our 3 kids. And so we kind of were looking at the different groups of what group should we be a part of. The assistant pastor, Tim, he comes up, and we kind of Cliff Notes version. "Hey, here's our situation. We're actually divorced. We're thinking about trying to make it again. This is our last ditch effort. If this doesn't work, we're not going to get back together." Yeah. And he gets like red in the face, like,
He was probably thinking, I want to run right now.
"Oh yeah, 100%."
No.
He's probably looking around
Yeah.
like, "Who put? This is a joke, right?"
Help.
Yeah, and he just gets red in the face. He goes, "Donald and Erica are phenomenal leaders. They're both marriage counselors. You should do that group."
Yeah.
So we signed up for the group. We didn't tell anybody we weren't married. Well, he told Donald and Erica.
Yeah.
They never told us that they knew. Everyone else was married. They all thought we were married. We did that small group, and it was beautifully timed because I was working at Echelon Front, and it was I at Echelon Front during marriage counts, small group? No, I was still I was traveling, and then that's right. So we were doing that. I wasn't at Echelon Front yet, but it was like my schedule allowed me to where I could actually be at the small group
To invest in the
sessions,
small
to
group.
actually invest into it, and it was awesome. So I was actually able to be a part of it, and it's what helped restore our marriage, and that's what brought us back together. And then so we were real big in the church. We moved to Texas, trying to find a church. And then just fell away because I made the excuse of being busy because I was on the road all the time and my time was limited at home. And I was either traveling on Sundays or just not able to make it happen. And again, the discipline is rooted in the truth that we tell ourselves.
Yeah.
So I was lacking the discipline as a man, as a head of the household, to make church a priority for my family. And we weren't going. And it wasn't until Aiden, was constantly pushing, "Hey, I'd like to be back in church." And Amanda's like, "Hey, we really need to get back into church. We really need to get back into church. Like, we're failing our kids."
Yeah.
And when she said that, I was just like, yeah, I am failing our family. Well, it was at that time Jeremiah Chapman sends me a text message and saying, "Hey, Ryan wants their daughter's name is Ryan. Ryan wants to see the girls. We're going to the 9:30 church service if you guys would like to come. It'd be awesome." And so, boom, well, what was crazy is his wife, Ashley, was talking to Amanda separate at a different time about this. He's talking with one of the pastors about me. The pastor knew me from Jocko podcast.
Yep.
We met at a serve day that we weren't going to the church, and we randomly just went to a serve day just to help serve the community because God put it on our hearts. So all this is happening at the same time, same day. He goes, awesome. I talked to Amanda, and she goes, that's crazy. Yeah, I was talking to Ashley. Let's go.
Yeah.
And it was an awesome thing. And I even, like, to the point, like, I asked Jeremiah a few weeks ago, I'm like, hey, did Amanda reach out to you and Ashley and ask you to invite me to church? He's like, no, bro. He's just like, it was completely separate, but our wives were talking about it.
Sure.
And I'm like, oh, that's a God thing.
Yeah.
And so we went to that church service, and then that's when I met the assistant pastor who I've become really close with, Tyron, like as in Byron.
Sure.
And so at first I thought it was Tyrone, and then because of the way it was spelled.
Yeah.
And then I asked, I'm like, how do you pronounce his name? They're like, Tyron. I'm like, okay, cool. Awesome guy. His story is just absolutely phenomenal, and we've just really connected, and that's what's brought our family back into church for the last couple of months, and it's been incredible.
Yeah, I love how God orchestrates those relationships, and Jared and I are in a small group together with our families, and I think we have like 5 or 6 couples that meet every other week, and there's power in it. I mean, there's power in relationship, there's power in fellowship and prayer, and it's interesting that you had asked, did my wife call? But that's what the Holy Spirit does, and I'm thankful for men like Jeremiah. I can't wait to meet him at some point, because he was bold enough to listen to God and reach out and invite. And I remember there was a guy, and we're going to be wrapping up here in a minute, but there was a guy before I had given my heart to Christ, he would knock on my door, and I'm not kidding you. It seemed like every day, inviting me to 2 things. He played adult league hockey, and I was in sales at the time, so I was running around, doing these sales presentations, and I had to look good in my suit or whatever. And he showed up one day with a big slash on his forehead. He'd gotten high-sticked playing hockey. And he's like, hey, do you want to come play adult league hockey with me? And I was like, bro, what happened to your head? And he's like, oh, I took a high stick in hockey. I was like, I'm not playing hockey, bro. I can't go out and do presentations with a big slash on my forehead. And he's like, all right, you want to come to church with me then on Sunday? And I was just like, after all the times he had asked me, I finally said yes. But God knew that was the time for me. Yeah. And so God knew that was the time for you as well. So on that note, I want to...
and I just be full disclaimer, like, because I know Jeremiah will listen to the podcast. I'll post about it. He'll listen to it.
Yeah.
I wouldn't even care. Like, that's the thing. Like, and I told him, I'm like, I don't care. Like, if Amanda called you or, set something up, because it was really, at the very beginning, like, everything with him and Tyron, the conversations, the lunches, Tyron and Jeremiah would come over to my house. We'd work out in the morning. It was just, it was so bizarre to me. It felt like a setup.
For sure.
It just really felt like that.
That's how it is.
And I don't care. And again, if it had been, I don't care. But then I kind of came to the conclusion that the reason why I felt like it was a setup is because it was what I was supposed to have been doing the whole time, and that was guilt on my side. I recognized what I had been missing, and I was guilty that I hadn't been doing it the whole time. So I tried to justify it in my mind. Oh, Amanda and Jeremiah, they all set this up. Yeah. It was just, in my mind, I thought it was. And hey, if it was, thank you.
Yeah.
Well, either way, I'm thankful that it happened.
That's, this just came to thought as we go to final thoughts here in a minute. But I remember, again, going back to the story of Seth Stone calling Jocko. Mm-hmm. And I know that Seth was very near and dear to you.
Yes.
And you told me that he was a believer in Christ.
Yes, he was.
And I wonder, because I know that you wouldn't be transparent totally telling people how much you might be hurting if he understood how greatly you were hurting, or if God had put that on his heart when he had called Jocko.
He had zero clue.
Yeah.
Nobody.
I figured so much.
Had any clue.
Yep.
Like, besides Amanda and I, zero
So even
people.
God orchestrated that whole meeting.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, it blows me away, bro. When you look at it in retrospect like that, and you look back at, everything that he's organized, it's like, and I told Jared this, even as we were, out here doing jiu-jitsu, and just the way this academy came together, our sole mission is to live to honor him, God.
Yes.
And I know that, you guys have a similar thing with Echelon Front, where you live to honor the men that have gone before you in the teams.
It's on the inside of the bracelet that I wear with all the names of all my guys that have
for sure
been killed.
But it's like we live to honor God, and we know that when we live to honor God, that everything that we do in our relationships, in our vocation, our interactions with people, they're going to be God honoring. But we have to honor him first. Our vertical relationship has to be right for our horizontal relationships to be right. So with that, I want to go to, we do a thing here called Final Thoughts with JP. And I just wanted to get some final thoughts from you, some insight, some knowledge that you can drop on some guys that might be listening to this podcast that would encourage them in their walk.
Maybe ones that are dealing with complacency.
Yeah,
or
complacency
excuses.
or lack of discipline in their life.
We've talked about a lot of really good stuff. I think one that I've been saying for the last 5 years that my parents instilled into all 3 kids in my family is, you can make excuses or you can make things happen. You can't do both.
Can't do both, yeah.
And we make excuses when we're lying to ourselves. And I would just go back to discipline is rooted in the truth that we tell ourselves. Whenever you decide to stop lying to yourself and go out there and commit to living your life the way God intended you to live your life, you'll achieve victory and success. But until then, you're going to be struggling. And there's going to be times that require sacrifice. And, you know, you're going to have to trust God. You're going to have to trust that he's going to provide for you. But knowing that God's going to provide for you isn't enough. You have to go out there and do the work. You have to take action. And if you don't take action, nothing is going to change in your life. And so you have to make a commitment, come up with a plan, and then act. Without action, everything else will fall apart.
Yeah. Faith without works is dead.
Yes,
That's what
I
James
love that.
says. You know, we've been powered by Jocko Discipline Go.
Yes.
Tonight, I know that you guys drank yours before we came in. I was still milking mine because I know I'm going to be up all night from this. But we're here at Balm Jiu-Jitsu Academy. We're wholesalers for the Origin product line. Thanks to JP.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we love the product line. So if you're not drinking Jocko Discipline Go, as clean energy, as energy that has nootropics that helps you think better, I think it's improved my jiu-jitsu game. But I could be kidding myself because I still stink at jiu-jitsu.
I'm the worst purple belt in the world,
Yeah.
so
I think we're competing for the worst purple belt in the world.
Competing for that title.
And Jared just started, so he's a white belt.
Come on.
I'm a newbie.
Yeah.
But he didn't do this to my eye,
No.
so I'll just take that. But I wanted to give them a shout out because we believe in the Origin product line. We love what the company stands for. Bringing back America the right way. And I had heard Pete's story. I'll just end on this to give Origin a plug. When I was out at the last camp, the jiu-jitsu camp at Origin, I did the factory tour, which I hadn't done in 19 because Caleb was with me.
It's amazing.
But Pete had explained a story that Timberland had taken their boot manufacturing equipment, not Origin, but Timberland had taken their equipment and put it in Dominican Republic. And then the story is that Origin went over and
They
rescued
took it.
that equipment back, brought it back to Maine, and makes just awesome boots and jiu-jitsu gis and other apparel.
Yeah, jeans,
And I'll
boots,
tell you,
belts.
I don't mind spending an extra few bucks for good quality products that they put out. So thank you for introducing me to the product line, and we're excited to carry it. And you have your own Jocko Discipline Go.
I do. I have
signature.
Signature flavor, sour apple sniper, and we also now have a powdered pre-workout version of it, and it's so good. It's dangerously
good. Did you
good.
scoop that into your mouth the other day with some water?
Some dry scoops. Yeah. Come on.
Interesting. Well,
But the cool thing, I'll finish. One thing I add to what you just said about Origin, because we were talking about being equally yoked earlier.
Yes.
I think that's been the big connection and draw to me to Origin and Jocko feeling what they're doing. Pete and Amanda Roberts, they're of faith. They believe in God. They're amazing.
Awesome
they're an amazing
people.
family.
Yep.
Their kids are phenomenal. But Pete's big thing is made in America without compromise.
Yes.
And everything that Peter Roberts does in his life is without compromise. His marriage, his family, his faith, his business. And there's no doubt in my mind that's why he has the level of success that he has.
Yeah.
And obviously partnering with Jocko, what they've been able to do together, and just, branching away from just jiu-jitsu gis of bringing boots and jeans and belts and wallets and all the new stuff that they have coming up. It's ridiculous.
Yes.
But the big thing that I love, and that's what I've been drawn to Origin and their story, and I'll do anything I can to support them, is without compromise. And I guess that would be my final thought is, if you can live a life without compromise, you're gonna be doing what God intended for you to do.
Well, there you go.
There we go.
Live a life without compromise. Final thought from JP Dinnell. JP, thank you for
brother.
coming on to our first podcast, and I'm
love
sure
it.
there'll be many more.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And do you have any final thoughts there?
No,
Jared?
I mean, thank you for being with us today. And
Thank you for being a good example on the mat tonight. I know that everyone
It was
enjoyed
fun.
rolling with you, and looking forward to the event that we're doing tomorrow.
It's gonna be awesome.
God bless you, bro.
Thank you.
Have a good night.